Hello and welcome to Games from Folktales, a podcast that mixes historical research with tabletop role-playing settings. I'm your host, Timothy Ferguson. This week we continue our series looking at Cornish topics to flesh out the obvious starting point for new Ars Magica campaigns in the British Isles. Following the tremendously long section on the tribes of the Fae, Hunt, whose text we are following, narrows his focus to a single person, the damned soul of Jan Tregagle. As someone not from Cornwall, I'd like to note that I've only ever read the name, so I could be mispronouncing it. Write in and correct me if I've got it wrong. There's not a lot known about the life of Tregagle. He is said to be one of the family who owned Trevorda near Bodmin. He lived a dissolute life, exchanging one sin for another, until his death. To save him from damnation, a prior, properly paid, indulged his sins and buried him in a church where Satan could not claim him. This did not last him until judgment, however, because a lawyer called up his animate corpse to testify in a court case about a piece of land on which Tregagle had falsified records. Afterwards, the lawyer abandoned him to the judge and the prior who had aided him so much during life. The churchmen could not merely surrender a soul to the devil, so they gave Tregagle an eternal penance. He needed to empty a bottomless pool, Dosme on Bodmin Moor, which is said to link to Falmouth Harbour, with a limpet shell with a hole in it, never resting lest Satan take him. Hunt notes this punishment is the same as that given to the daughters of Danaus in Greek mythology. After a time, Tregagle was driven from the pool by a terrible, possibly infernal, storm, and fled the Black Hunter until he reached St. Breock's church and shoved his head into the window. Demons could hurt him but could not drag him away, so he screamed under their torture for many weeks. This terrified the locals. He was assigned a new task, to make ropes of sand on a beach near Padstow. Eventually he terrified the locals there so much that St. Petrock chained him and took Tregagle to a beach near Ella's town, which was then a rich port, where his penance was to carry sand away from the beach until it was bare rock. Eventually Tregagle was tripped by a demon, and his sack of sand formed a bar across the harbour of the town, destroying its economy. He was then sent to Port Curnow Cove, near Land's End, to sweep the beach's sand around the headland into a cave. He's still there, other than when he's forced from his task by the Black Hunter and flees his wish-hounds across Cornwall. His cries are louder than the Atlantic gales. They are louder than the wind whistling through the cairns of Bodmin. His screams of hope, pain, fear, and frustration may be heard anywhere in Cornwall. Barghests and other hellhounds are already known in Ars Magica, but in Cornwall they are strongly related with the figure of Tregagle and the Black Hunter who chases him to the dread blast of his bugle. This demonic figure, also called the Midnight Hunter, is served by headless hounds which nonetheless howl. The cry of these hounds is fatal to mortal dogs. In Cornwall and Devon, these are often called yell hounds or wish hounds. This comes from a local dialect word, wisht, which means melancholy or supernatural. Wistman is a term that's suitable for magi, as some writers mistakenly think the word is related to weird or wise or Woden. Tregagle, in one variant of the story, cannot abide the presence of babies. This may be because they are sacred innocents. A person carrying a baby is proof against his powers, even if they merely scoop up the child of a random nearby person. In another story, Dosme Pool was an infernal regio, a castle of carnality that Tregagle traded his soul for access to for 100 years. Time passed without him noticing while he was there, however, and at the end of the time the hunter came and killed him with a bolt of flame, now chasing his ghost for sport. Moving on to the plot hooks, Tregagle seems a potent spirit, so a covenant with a weak Aegeus might serve as a new refuge for him. Does this lead to a demonic siege? Tormenting demons being more common in the neighbourhood, can the characters get him out without asking saints to come in and perform miracles, damaging their magical aura? Pardoning sin for money is a sensitive topic. Some Catholics think the way that we talk about it in English has been inflated by Protestant propaganda. It's clear that the Fourth Lateran Council in 1215, slightly before the standard start date for Ars Magica campaigns, stamped down on what it considered abuses. The doctrine of the superabundance of the merit of Jesus and the saints is developing in the game period, but can only be traced textually to about 1230. Regardless of the precise mechanism of pardoning, I still like the fact that pardoners are called quaesitors. I'm tempted to design an NPC bandit leader who thought a hermetic quaestor was a pardoner, tried to rob him, and then was hired after being defeated because the quaestor thought it was hilarious. There seem to be a batch of lawyers in this story who can call up the dead despite Christian burial. Is this some sort of tradition of infernalists? Is Tregagle really a fairy impersonating the sinner? Similarly, priests seem to be very good at controlling his spirit. Are they all saints, or is there some other technique employed? Could a modern sinner be damned in much the same way as Tregagle, a nobleman or magus, for example? If a magical battle disturbs the site of his labour, for example by destroying the cave that he's sweeping the sand into, such that Tregagle needs a new task, what might it be? Finally, the centre of House Titalis is just across the channel. If one of those magi wants to chase the Midnight Hunter, what trouble could that bring? And that draws us to a close this week. Once again, I have no tagline. Next week, we'll be returning to Lord Dunsany and our conceit that his writings are the writings of a redcap who has retired. I believe next week we have pirates, a floating island, and what may be a fairy queen. So that's a Covenant site. I'll see you then.